All right. Well, hello and welcome to summer camp for teachers. I mean, from home, but it's fun. I am Monty Kalish. I am the Director of Technology and a co-inventor of Packful, the Director of Technology for the Jacobs Institute for Innovation in Education. We are a nonprofit R&D institute supporting innovation efforts for schools and districts and teachers around the world. And we're doing a lot of work with our Packful app to bring social good innovation to the world in order to build a better world. So we appreciate you joining.
I'm Alina Mitchell. I am the Associate Director of Academic Innovation and Technology at the Jacobs Institute. Happy to be here with you all and support you in whatever way that I can as you integrate Packful into your classrooms. I was a former principal, former teacher for 11 years, so lots of experience there, particularly working with middle schoolers. However, I have worked with children as young as second grade, probably, well, as old as 11th grade, I'd say as well. So, and even college, that was actually my first teaching assignment, believe it or not. So I taught basic writing and intensive writing at the University of Alabama. So lots of experience, but just here and happy to support in whatever way I can.
So thank you, Alina. Since there's a small group, I know that we're recording for others and some people time zones and stuff where, couldn't join us, which is totally fine. But since we're a small group, do you want to take yourself off mute? We've already done a little bit about that, but a little off mute and just say hi, introduce yourself, where you're from, and what you're hoping for.
I'll start. I'm Amy, and I'm from Fullerton, California, so beautiful Orange County. And I'm a teacher on special assignment with our district in the innovation and instructional support. So this past year with COVID, we always have this huge festival celebrating student voice and choice. And one of the events is called Civic Endeavors. And the whole intent behind it is for students to find some little area that they can make the world a better place and develop solutions for that. And so we did use Packful, and I'm going to call it Packful Light because we met once a week for about 45 minutes, and it was via Zoom and across several schools. And I love Packful. And so for me, I'm here just to see how I can do it maybe again, because I'm going to be doing the same thing next year with a bit more fidelity and going a little deeper. Like it was a lot of me taking everything from Packful and then saying, okay, here's the 30-minute Reader's Digest version of it. So anyway, happy to be here.
It's so good to see you again, Amy. We got a chance to connect with some folks in Fullerton. Amy was my Disney partner. So we went to Disneyland. The Jacobs Institute is working on a Ed Imagineering series that is sort of partnered with Disney. And so our team went and tried it out and it was fantastic. So it's great to see you again.
It was fantastic.
I can go next, Suji. Hello, everyone. Monica with a K, Mormon. I am a 4th grade teacher in South Florida, Plantation. Let's see, I am a strong proponent of student voice, student activism, looking for and solving local problems. So I'm always looking for resources that would give me some more, maybe scope and sequence of the process. I don't know much about Packful, I'll be honest, but I'm open.
That's great. That's why we're here.
Thank you.
So I have a slightly different background because for about 15 years, I was before that, I worked as a librarian and whatever at the Smithsonian in DC. And then I became a school librarian for 15 years. But at the end so from 2008 to 12, I worked in China at an international school. And then from 2012 to 2019, I was at an international school in Malaysia, International School of Kuala Lumpur. And the last couple years that I was there, I was also the service learning and sustainability coordinator. And I really, really, really loved what I did in that position. So in 2019, I quit my job and I kind of changed my whole life. And so now I'm working with 2 different social enterprises so one of them is called Make a Difference Courses. And it's a long story, but basically what we ended up doing after COVID is to connect students with social entrepreneurs and change makers around the world so that they can learn from their examples. And we have some social innovation workshops that we do for all the way from little kids to university. And then the other company I work for and with is called Orenda Learning. And we have a curriculum and a framework for students to engage with like best practice in service learning to kind of guide them through the service process to avoid, some of the pitfalls of saviorism and all that kind of thing. So so I'm always just looking to kind of learn more about how people are teaching this in the classroom and how to make our courses better and how to incorporate them in our toolkits to give kids better ways to address the Sustainable Development Goals is a framework we often use.
That's fantastic. Well, welcome to all of you and to those who are watching the recording. Want to confirm that you can see my screen? Got some thumbs up, fantastic. So we're going to dive right in. I would say I'm going to give you a little framing for what the camp experience is. We are going to, Alina and I, and Amy just participated, so she's got probably some good advice to offer too. But we just wrapped up our 2nd annual Teen Innovation Challenge. Just a few weeks ago, we had over 2,800 teenagers sign up to join and participate across the world in creating social good innovation solutions, and we awarded almost up to $3,000 in prizes for charitable purposes. And so on the heels of that, we're now cycling back into our next year with this summer camp, where our hope is to help educators come along, see how social good innovation works with the Packful curriculum, and then think about how you could incorporate it into your classrooms or into the future. And then hopefully you will also consider joining us into our challenge events. So with Packful, we do a few things. We've got the platform and the curriculum, but we also run events like the Teen Innovation Challenge and summer camps and other things. So we've got lots of potential opportunities. I'll just dive right in. The Packful, we call it an app or platform. The Packful was created by the Jacobs Institute to help teens become social good innovators. And we believe that teenagers can change the world if they're provided the right access to innovation skills and tools. And so Packful, social good innovators work in teams to create solutions for the betterment of everyone. And Packful is aligned to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which throughout the app we refer to as the global goals consistently, whose purpose is to improve the world. And we introduce students to design thinking as a mechanism to kind of think about how they can take an idea from a problem and an idea all the way to a pitched solution. I'll play our video.
Anyone can be a social innovator. Social innovation is all about people around the world working together to solve local and global problems. In 2015, the United Nations agreed to make the world a better place by establishing 17 global goals. These goals offer a framework to address large social challenges such as poverty, hunger, and climate change. Here, you'll develop an innovator's mindset to tackle any challenge and create solutions aligned to the global goal. These solutions could be something as small as how to handle food waste at home, or as large as how to provide clean drinking water to anyone in your city. To make the world a better place, it takes people like you working in teams. Using the design thinking process, you'll identify issues, brainstorm ideas, and prototype incredible new solutions to problems that affect us. Your team will work through 3 phases of design thinking: understand, ideate, and prototype to create a solution for a local or global issue. When complete, you'll also develop a pitch to share your work with a larger audience. Have you ever realized that everything in the world is design, but not all designs are good? With an innovator's mindset and design thinking, you will redesign the world and make it a better place. Get ready to become a bold and powerful innovator.
So I'm going to briefly talk about how Packful works. Packful uses a Google account for both teachers and students. And throughout the process, students will link files from their Google Drive to submit the collection of files for their teacher for review. And I'm going to show you an example of this later. So we're going to do a little demo, and hopefully this will help frame everything. Within the Packful curriculum, students use design thinking to create a solution for a problem that they've identified. So design thinking is this nonlinear iterative approach that seeks to help students understand how people are impacted by issues, challenge their assumptions about a problem that they might have identified, redefine the problems, and ultimately create innovative solutions to prototype and test. Within Packful, students follow the 3 phases of design thinking that we use: understand, ideate, and prototype. Students don't have to complete them in any particular order, but for the purposes of camp and in some initial scenarios, we do tend to see people start out in a linear way, but we know that designing solutions and creating things is not clean and simple, and it's not in a linear method. Students are more likely to be engaged when they have choice, so we've enabled those efforts throughout the application experience. And so after all the phases have been completed, students will create a video pitch to tell their story of their innovative solution. So here's an example, and we'll have some more about this. Some of the benefits for Packful are that we do support nonlinear learning, as I said, because we know that innovation doesn't always occur in a neat linear fashion. Packful's design mirrors innovation in the workplace and avoids constraints like grades and other things. I know some folks want to figure out how to align their work in Packful to grading, and we've got some tips and help for that, including alignment activities, but we don't support grading directly into the app. We do have a fully developed curriculum with a teacher's guide, innovator's guide, and over 30 activities. We encourage teamwork by allowing students to engage socially with their peers. We also support the autonomy in their choice. Students get to choose their global goal, their project name. It includes emojis if they want to, group names and other people who are in it, and they can change that at any time. And we support feedback loops with teachers. So teachers are able to provide that feedback loop that's intentional. So when you get something, it's not good or bad. It's just, there's 2 ways you can respond to student work. You can say it's approved with comments, or you can say it's returned, not a down arrow, but it's just a return. Maybe you need to do more work or think about it differently.
And Monty, I wanted to add in before you change that slide with the benefits of Packful. When I think about like innovation being non-linear, it reminds me of a time where I judged some student projects at a local high school here in San Diego. And one of the projects was basically, it was an invention where he created like a little device to place on the back of your chairs to for students to place to hold their book bags. And so when I asked him, like, what made you, come up with that idea? He said, well, every day my teacher just kept fussing about our book bags being in the way on the floor. And he said, I was just thinking if I could come up with some kind of solution that could, end this, she would stop fussing every day. And so that's what inspired him to create the solution. And so when I asked him, well, what was the hardest part about, this project for you? He said, well, it was having to go back and do the research and understand why this is important and see what else is on the market that's similar. So that was, to me, that was an excellent example of how, a student can just literally just jump to the solution itself, with skipping the other steps. But it's important to understand and to, generate ideas through, ideation, but to just kind of go back and go through the process. But oftentimes we do think of the solution first and we don't think about the other parts. And so I like how Packful leaves it up to the students to decide like where they want to start in the process.
That's great.
All right, so I'll chime in here with just to talk to you a little bit more about the global goals. So Packful itself helps students to be introduced to the innovator's mindset, the 17 UN global goals, as Monty mentioned, and also design thinking. And so students are able to choose the global goal that feels the most relevant to them. You know, it could be something that's happening in their local community or something that they saw on the news and said, you know, I really want to, you know, address this particular issue. So one of the recurring themes that you'll see in Packful is that there's a lot of student autonomy here. Students have a lot of choices to make. And what we find is when students have that choice, they feel a lot more connected to their work and they're more vested into their projects. And so, you know, we know in a classroom, teachers, you know, you can do it however you want. You know, some teachers do find that some of these global goals actually align to other areas that they are already teaching in their curriculum, and they may feel like, hey, I want to choose the goal for my class. That's okay too. You know, we're leaving it up to the teacher's discretion, but the way it is designed does allow for a lot of student autonomy. And the global goals themselves were created by world leaders to address social, physical, environmental issues, and more. So they're like problems at the macro level, but then there are also problems at the micro level as well. And so by addressing these goals, students can engage within their communities to make a difference. And that's it's important when they see the learning in action and it's really making a difference, then they're more likely to, you know, to commit their time and effort into the project. And when using Packful, teachers, again, like I said, it's up to the teachers, it's your discretion. We will support you in whatever way you think possible. And as you go throughout the process, you know, we're curious to know, like, what did you decide? Did you decide to allow your students to choose, or did you choose it for them? And what was your experience? Because all of that is important for us. I love talking about the different thinking models, and particularly looking at this graphic here because it was created by one of our Packful teachers here in San Diego. And one of the things that's, you know, we like to emphasize is feedback from our teachers. You know, if there is something that you want to add, or you think like, hey, I came up with this cool concept, I want to share it with you all, we will embrace it, just like we have embraced this graphic created by Mr. Cerruti here in San Diego. And, you know, of course, we tweaked it a little bit, but as you can see, there are different design thinking models out there. You have Packful, you have IDEO, Project Invent, and others. And this just shows you how we've taken the design thinking process and made it our own. But our process does encompass all of the aspects. We just condensed and combined some of the areas so that, you know, just to, you know, I guess with time, it helps with time. And we just found creative ways to just condense it for students. We found to have made it easier for them. But either model works, but ours is all encompassing. We took some time because, you know, we know that in school systems, you know, aligning your curriculums and lessons to standards is always, well, it's a lens that is required and it's also helpful for teachers. And so we have taken the time to align our Packful activities to the next generation science standards, the Digital Promise Challenge Map, and also the ISTE standards as well. And you can reference this information on the website. And of course, we're open, you know, if you have a suggestion like, hey, these are a massive set of standards, because we know we work with international teachers and we're always looking for, you know, a different lens to look at them through. So if you know, have a suggestion, then, you know, we're open to that as well.
And I should have mentioned before, especially with the small group, you can either in chat or just unmute yourself if you have a question or a comment. Feel free to jump in. We're a small enough group, we can totally do that. I did want to just sort of reframe what we're hoping from you through this camp experience. Is you're going to run through camp just like we kind of asked the students to go through it. We did the student challenge over the course of what is effectively a semester. Some people actually start in the fall, and so they take it and make it a year-long course. It just, other people are shortened and they only have a couple months and they only meet once a week, like Amy. You can do this in a lot of different ways. We're going to kind of do an aggressive, you know, primer approach to the challenge event over the course of the next 4 weeks, where you'll have a little bit of class time where we talk about what's upcoming, and then we'll have a homework assignment where you'll, and again, you're only going to be able to tackle what you can tackle. in this time, and we're asking each person to, give us an hour or so between classes to do some homework, and it is going to be what it's going to be. You can spend as long as you want, that's great, but we're just trying to give everybody a little sense of how this could work and hopefully inform your future thinking in a classroom. So with that, one of the things in the homework, I asked people to go ahead and set up a Packful account. I know some of you have and some of you haven't, so hopefully you'll do that afterward. But I'm going to show you kind of how Packful works at a quick level glance, so you have an understanding of what you're getting into and what that could look like, because we're going to use it in this class. So from the Packful website, there's always this little sign-in button in the upper right corner. If you've not yet created your account, you can do so with the Create Account. It's also the link in the emails that I sent. Students who have, once you have an account in Packful, you invite students to join using your class code, which I'm sure is a mechanism you've been familiar with in the past. But teachers join, sign up, fill out some information, and they get a class code. So with this, for now, I already have my class. I'm going to sign in. In this case, I have a couple of classes, and if you have, once you register, you will also have a couple of classes, because when you first register as a teacher, we create a class for you that you can use with your students. Right now, you're probably not using it with students. I've created a new class for this camp called the 2021 Teacher Camp class. Once you switch to that class, which I will ask you to do when you for your homework assignment, switch to that class so that all your work stays in that class, and then we can become your teachers for the feedback loops. But afterward, you can switch back to other classes and we can make anything work for you. So students who come in Packful, they'll log in, we encourage them. The student view is slightly different than the teacher view, but it's very similar. In this case, I'm a teacher, but it's very similar. We encourage students to explore the Innovator's Guide, which I'm going to show you in the top. This is your kind of starting point for what is Packful, getting started. This is that introduction video that we just showed, kind of introduces students to social good innovation as a concept. What are the global goals? What is design thinking? You will see this sort of light curricular theme throughout the Packful experience. We intended for the instructional part to be sort of light, and then the real meat is when teams are working on activities, which may or may not happen in the Packful app itself. But the Innovator's Guide is always up here, and it also has information about all the global goals with links. So if you're not familiar, or students want to explore what each global goal looks like and think about that, and then resources for both students and teachers, more about social good innovation, ideas about how to work with teams, success stories. There's also the teacher's guide here. It's actually available to students too. But this has a lot more information for teachers if you want to look at and think about how you might leverage it in your classroom in more details. And that's all available right on the Innovator's Guide under Resources. Switching back, the real meat of what happens is we encourage students to form a team and then create a project. That's how you get started in Packful. You create a project, you pick a global goal. These can be changed at any time in the future, so you're not wedded to it. In the beginning, you might have an idea about, I'm going to fix the trees. Can't spell today. So as a reminder, we encourage students to come up with team names that are fun and exciting. They can use emojis, whatever they want to do. And then they can add other team members who are in that Packful class to the project if they want to. And this is part of the autonomy. In this case, I'll add Alina, and then I can give my project a more specific name because this was my team name might want to be the Tree Fixers. And then this is the default project name, is like we're fixing the trees. We don't know how yet. And I'll say, the descriptions in the beginning, we'd like to encourage folks to put an idea of what you're thinking about. This can be changed, and especially as a project evolves from an initial idea into a solution, we like to see those names or those descriptions evolve, because the descriptions also appear in the showcase. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to remove it for the moment. I'll go ahead and create that project. Now, once I've created a project in the context of a project, I can see the design thinking phases, and I can jump into any one of them and explore what that looks like. So within each of the phases, you'll see these same 3 steps repeated on the left: explore, do, and document. The explore is that light curricular material that kind of introduces what that phase looks like. We have custom videos for each one of them. At the top, they're 1 to 2 minute videos, and then followed by some additional information that might be helpful for students. As they progress, they go into the do. These are the activities that we have outlined. And for each phase, we usually have some advice at the top. As a team, select and complete 3 to 5 activities. You as the teacher could tell them, I want you to do activity 1, or pick 1 activity only, whatever you want to do. There's no rules there. It's like whatever makes the most sense in your scenario. So in this camp scenario, we're going to ask you to complete 1 of these activities from the understand phase before next week. Do the best you can, whatever. And that might look like, this first one is, so in this case, I've got this idea, I want to fix the trees. I don't know what that means. So I might understand how to do some initial research. And I can start a research portfolio using the template. So I will create, we've got a template here. I can make a copy of that for my purposes. I'm going to go ahead and say it's Camp 21 research portfolio. You can start working on, add this, this is my tree savers, and then start working through the activity depending on what the activity examples were. This is just using Google Docs, right? So all of the evidence and activity and stuff, we don't collect that. We only collect links from students back to using Google. I know that's an issue for some people, but we do require the use of Google for authenticating into Packful and for this purpose of documentation. If your school does not provide Google accounts for you or your students, then you can use Gmail accounts as well, free Gmail accounts. So I can complete this activity, and when it's time, and I've got all these activities, I could look through them all. Lena's going to go through some more detail. Once it's time, when I feel like I'm ready, or I can link in advance, I'm going to come over here to the linked area, and I'm going to find that activity or that portfolio. I'm going to link it right here. And when I'm ready, if I feel like our team is ready, and any person, any student on the team can do this, we're going to submit it to our teacher for feedback. And I'm going to say, okay, I think we're ready. That sends a cue to the teacher. The teacher gets the notification on their dashboard, which I can see back here because I am the teacher, so it's kind of this weird cycle. I can see this information on the dashboard. I can look at the documents that they've submitted. Because it's Google Docs, I can make comments right in there if I wanted to. And then ultimately, I can decide what to do with that piece of work. I can say, hey, looks like a great start, but keep going, and send it back. And then that gets returned to the student team for additional work and feedback. And that's the feedback loops that we're talking about throughout this experience. I think really from a student's perspective and a teacher's perspective, that's the highlights. Each one of these projects, this is that notification that I've got something here as a teacher to grade because the team just submitted it. So I can see, oh, it was returned. Why was it returned? Looks great, but keep going. Oh, I've got more work to do. So I can send it, do more work, attach more files. If I want to do another activity or additional activities, send it back to the teacher. Ultimately, hopefully it gets, approved, and it will then show up on their page as approved. The last piece I'll show you in the app is actually the showcase. The showcase evolves over time. It's real projects that come in. In fact, these are examples of the projects that we just completed from our innovation challenge. This space umbrella, I did not make this happen. This just happened to be the one that popped to the top. They were the #1 team this last time, but there were some really, really great solutions that were created this year. But this gives, and we're going to continue to evolve the showcase. It's really a showcase of practical solutions aligned to the global goals as they evolve. And you see these progress indicators that give you an indication, give you and students an indication of how far along they are in that project. Each of these are all completed. You see the 4 checks. But if I go back to my dashboard, I can see in this particular project I just created, I've only submitted the first phase. The others have not yet been touched in any way. All right. Any questions? And it's kind of a quick run through, but really it's about experiencing it, logging in, jumping in. During this camp, you're welcome to work alone or with a team member if you want to. It doesn't matter to us. Typically, we encourage with actual students that they would team up and be in a team of more than one student, but that's just kind of how we evolve. All right.
Okay, before we jump into the content of the understand phase, I thought it'd be nice for us to just take somewhat of a mental break and take a look at these fun social media posts that we have from our latest Teen Innovation Challenge. As Monty mentioned, we do have these opportunities throughout the school year for you to participate in, but of course you don't have to. You can just use Packful however you want in your classroom, but it's always nice either way to showcase the work that you're doing. It's fun for us to see, for other educators, and also students as well. And as you can see from these pictures here, it definitely reflects the complexities of the past year. You see our Zoom picture here, and everyone's wearing masks, but you know what? That doesn't stop us from building a better world. So I love that, that the work still continues. And as things open up, or if they decide to digress a little bit, the work can still continue with the students. And what we found was that there was a lot of engagement, and students were really excited to participate and really help to make their community a better place. I do have a quick poll that I would like to share with you as well. So if you can take a moment to answer them, this will help us to give us some insight on how you're feeling with Packful. And also we have some random fun questions in there also. So you should see them on your screen.
I need to start some background music for the polling time.
I know.
Jeopardy.
Yeah, Jeopardy. I thought I was thinking the same thing.
New rate assumption.
Okay, now I see those answers coming in.
That last one's a tough one. I want to go visit all of them for different reasons.
Oh, yes. Okay, we'll take a few more moments. I think everyone, or almost everyone, has participated. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you're ready for me to share. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Let's take a look. Okay, so which responses below best describes what you would hope to accomplish this year using Packful? So teach SDGs definitely is the top answer. Teach students how to build a better world as well. And also understand the SDGs, design thinking, and social good innovation. But the other areas are important too, but thank you for sharing that. Now, the fun question, although the first one was fun as well. If you could have any of the following superpowers, I think I left off a word there below, which one would you choose? Ooh. Oh, so it looks like it's split between invisibility, ability to fly, time travel. Okay. Wow, no immortality, no super strength. Interesting, interesting. Okay, the next question, on a scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable are you with using new ed tech platforms in your classroom? Okay, so it looks like it ranges between 3 to 5. Understandable. I know some are, more user-friendly than others, but we're hopeful that you will find Packful to be very user-friendly, and you're getting hands-on experience through this camp. And so any questions or support you need, we can walk you through that. So in the fall, you'll be ready to go. Number 4, if you could go back in time to visit any of the following decades below, which one would you choose? Ooh, the 60s seems to be like the top answer, but also the 50s. Nice. I don't know. I think I might, the 90s. I think I need to go back to the 90s to just, I feel like there were some things I took for granted. Maybe because I was so young.
Do over.
Do over.
My childhood. But all fun answers. Thank you so much for participating in that. Okay, we can go on to the next slide. All right, so today we're going to talk about the understand phase. Monty explained the three phases that we'll be walking through, but we'll start here with understand. Understand is really is where students can dive deep into the research by learning how to empathize with people being affected by that particular problem. They'll gather important facts, stories, and other important details through observations and also interviews. Here, they are taught how to avoid making assumptions, learning the importance of being objective, and understanding the complexity of problems. So like Suji mentioned earlier about those pitfalls that students can find themselves in, like the savior complex or other areas, this is where they will learn how to avoid to do that. Now, the Packful curriculum is broken up into 3 categories: research, empathy, and organization. And so we're going to go into the activities for each one of these categories. So we'll start with research. Now, as Monty mentioned, there are about 7 to 10 activities for each phase. Again, we recommend about 3 to 5. However, depending upon how much time that you have, like Amy, you said you were meeting, once 45 minutes a week, so you may not, have all, enough time to complete, that many activities, but you may say, hey, I want them to do, 2 of them. Or let's say there's a particular one that you want them to focus in on, just depending upon your time. As I mentioned, just Packful, it also gives student autonomy, but it also gives teacher flexibility, which is always appreciated and needed at times, because sometimes you just never know what's going to happen. You can plan for things to, happen a certain way, but they don't always do that, as I'm sure you all know. So let's take a look at activity 1, dive into the research questions. This activity allows students to create research questions with their team using the digital research portfolio template, as Monty showed earlier. It's a graphic organizer, and we try to provide graphic organizers for pretty much all of our activities, just to help it move students along in the process. We don't ever want students to get stuck in the, having to build a graphic organizer, stuck there at that skill, and then they're taken away from the building a better world part. So we want the focus to be on the building a better world and actually thinking and organizing through those ideas. So we try to provide graphic organizers to help the process flow easier. So they're going to you basically come up with research questions. We do give some examples on the template, and they can ask those in a list of online databases. We point them to those where they could find information about their global goals. Within activity 2, uncover assumptions, personal assumptions chart. This activity helps students to uncover their personal assumptions about their problem. Sometimes they think like, oh, I'm objective, I'm not biased, but some cases they actually are. And so this activity helps them to uncover those assumptions that they may have. So they'll have an opportunity to identify what they already know about the problem and think about the information that they still need or even want to know about it. Within activity 3, addressing disparities, understanding differences. This actually helps students to recognize how people in the categories of race, gender, geographical regions, and socioeconomic classes are affected by that particular issue. By having this full understanding, it helps them to know who and why certain people are affected, more so than others. And they're able to research and look out for shocking statistics, major contrast or any significant differences that are out there. Now, the next set of activities are empathy activities, and they really allow students to place themselves in the person's shoes who's affected by that particular problem. So starting with activity 4, empathize, create an interview script. This helps students to walk through the process of actually creating a script using, again, the template that we provide to guide them through the kinds of questions they should ask interviewees. Students will learn how to build rapport with people, identify big picture questions, and specific details that help them to extract the information that they need to address and understand the problem. And at any time, if you have any questions, feel free to interject or put a question in the chat. I'd be happy to answer. In activity 5, empathize, conduct interviews, students will find key people to interview using the script they created within the activity. Interviewees can be individuals who are directly affected by the problem. It could be professionals who are currently addressing it, or even people who have made just observations of the problem themselves. And then last but not least, the final empathy activity is conduct observations. This directs students to create a digital what, how, and why table. And so students are able to observe what the person is doing, how they are doing it, and why they might be doing it that way. And this helps students to really pull all of their judgments aside and focus and watch and listen to other people. And so again, it's teaching them that objectivity. And then the final category is organization, which we could all probably use some help with at times. But of course, learning to teach students at a young age is really helpful for them. And it's a skill that they could take for the rest of their lives. So as they're thinking about organizing all of the findings that they have, there's a particular activity called Organize Your Findings, Affinity Clusters. And to the left of the screen, you can see some examples of some affinity clusters that were built during our Jacobs Institute Changemaker Challenge from students. So students will have an opportunity to record their reflections down from their observations and interviews, and they can do this on digital sticky notes like Jamboard or Padlet. Within the activities, we do give them like tech tips, to make it easy for them. Of course, they could use an actual Post-it, but, in a virtual setting, or sometimes it's just even fun because just kids just naturally gravitate towards technology anyway. It's more fun to do it on a digital sticky note. But here they can highlight what really stood out the most to them. So it could be a great quote from somebody. It could be a thought-provoking question, or maybe a certain behavior that they observed that was really memorable. So then they can organize them into similarities and differences to gain some insights and patterns about the research that they found. And so again, it just helps them to organize that information, which is helpful. In activity 8, Organize Your Findings Empathy Map, students will complete a digital quadrant table labeled said, did, thought, and felt. And this way they can record any significant moments and feelings developed from their interview or observation. Like, what did the person say that was interesting? What did they do? What did they think? How did they feel? This is really important information. And what's also really awesome is that it introduces students to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so that's a nice tie-in there. And then the final activity, 9, Organize Your Findings Journey Map. Students will create a detailed digital timeline reflecting the day of an impacted person of the problem. And so basically, as they follow that person or at least get the information from an interview, they can uncover any assumptions that they have. They can ask any additional questions, or maybe even identify some gaps. We did add in an additional activity to really address the needs of students this particular school year, because we know they weren't able to get out and talk to people as often. So sometimes there were some opportunities for students to pull this information from news articles or online resources, or maybe a news clip. So to be able to walk through that process as well. So you will find that activity in Understand as well. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Monty for, Monty, you keep using that word homework. I think we got to change that.
I'm sorry, you're right. But it was a little bit of an activity in advance of camp. Some folks were able to get it done, and others were not. It's totally fine either way. First of all, I did want to welcome Kata. I know that she just joined us. We have a connection with Kata before, so welcome, Kata. I know you're late, but we're so glad to see you. The reason I mentioned the homework, which I should have changed from not being homework, I'm sorry. Just kind of a reminder from my emails, we did have a short little intro video to share with folks, and then we asked everyone to create an account in Packful, and then create an account and join and introduce yourself in the Packful community. So if you haven't had a chance to do that yet, please do so after. I will make it is important that if for some reason you already have a Packful account and you need help with that, just let me know, because I think I've captured everybody, but I could have missed somebody. And that leads me to what is our activity? The activity this week, between this week and next week, we're hoping that each of you will go through the process of thinking about a local or global problem that has some relevance to you. And then go into Packful and explore, but also create your initial project and complete one of the understand phases. And again, as we said before, it doesn't have to be perfectly complete. Do the best you can, spend as long as it makes sense for you, and then submit that your phase work to us. And you can just do the same thing I showed you earlier, submit to teacher for feedback. That'll come to Alina and me. And we'll provide feedback as if we were your teacher, and that'll be the same routine that you can do in the future in your classroom. So make sure you've selected the class in the top right corner, like I mentioned, and then this is the student view. You'll have an opportunity to create a project in the bottom right. That's how you get started to access the Understand activities that we just went through.
Don't worry, we won't grade your work too hard, we promise.
There's no grading. There's no grading. It's not a matter of grading. That's what
I'll say we won't provide any hard feedback, like you got to do this. No, don't worry about that.
I mean, honestly, that's what I love about this work, is that you can do this in a lot of different ways. We have had teachers who take this experience and align it to actual grade books and grades and do all that kind of stuff. We've had people who've had opportunities after school programs, all kinds of things that, in varying ways. Some people can do it in as little as an hour a week over this period. Other people slam it together and do further. There's lots of flexibility, and that's intentional. So that's this week's activity. I will be sending an email out later today with the recording and a synopsis of the activities. If you have not, like I said, if you have not yet created a Packful account, please do so, and then I will be adding you to this class so that you can create a project in this 2021 teacher camp class, because you'll have another class that's yours that you can ultimately use with students. And for those of you who were in Packful before, I'm looking at you, Amy, in particular, I have changed your Packful account to be a student account during this camp experience. As I said before, there's really only a subtle difference between students and teachers. Teachers obviously get the notification for feedback. So if in the event that I don't think anybody's actively working with students right now, but it would mess you up a little bit if you were trying to.
Okay.
And I'll switch it back after camp is over. Okay. And then the last thing, just sort of extra credit and extra help. In the event that you're looking for graduate extension credits, if you complete all the activities in camp and do that, then the University of San Diego, we have submitted some information to them so that you can get credit. There is a charge for that, unfortunately, but if that is of interest to you, we can support you in that effort. That information is on the camp website as well. And then the Packful community is a link at the top of every page within the Packful website and the curriculum. That gets you right back to the community where you introduce yourself. I will point out on the community, there's a link right here. There is a section in the community for frequently asked questions. There's a number of things in here that may be of interest to you. If you have questions, feel free to just kind of poke around in there. Or if you have any questions or need help or any thoughts, join us in general, just create a new thread or whatever works best for you. We're here to help and support you in any way that we can. That is the official end of our spiel this time. I also wanted to share a link. This may be interesting to some of you who want to see what, like I said, we just got finished with this challenge event. We had some awesome work, even in the midst of COVID. This happened to us last year. COVID disrupted in the middle of the challenge event. That did not go great because they weren't planning. At least this year, most educators and students kind of had a plan in place for how to work virtually and do stuff. And we've got some really great projects and stuff. You can take a peek at some of the end solutions that students are doing. And in some cases, there is at least one of the top winning projects that's already meeting with a company and potentially taking it to the next level. That's our second place team that won from Japan. There's 2 teenage girls that are trying to recycle ballet shoes. I actually fell in love with their story because it was one of those examples, like, I didn't know anything about ballet shoes and I didn't really care. It resonated with them and they sold it to me. And that's one thing we have definitely seen with the student teams who pick something that has some relevance to them and has some connection. It goes so much better because then they really can get attached to it. So that initial piece is tricky sometimes, helping them find something that they want to do, and hopefully through this experience they start to explore and get a better sense of what that means and come up with ideas. Questions, comments?
I'm going to put my 2 cents in with that.
Please.
That even though we had a short time, we spent a lot of time in the understand phase, and I think ultimately that did help each of the teams pick something that was personal to them for different reasons. And like the one that I submitted, those girls were very passionate about what they were doing and they got recognized. Thank you for this certificate. They were recognized at a board meeting recently and spoke eloquently about it, like junior high kids that don't want to be seen even. And it was really powerful for me.
And actually it's worth noting, Amy did support a team that, gosh, we had 2 teams that really rose above. They were right in there in the thick of we only awarded top 5, but we actually created a special category, 2 honorable mentions, one of which was the student team that Amy supported. They were just fascinating, just some really, not that there was anything, the finalists all did a great job, but there were definitely some that really rose above. So thank you for that help. I will say the one caution that I do have, Amy, kind of the flip to that, I've seen a couple scenarios where educators might spend too long on the understand and ideation phase. And then what ends up happening is they can get a little truncated later. That there's no perfect answer here, but that's the thing to kind of keep in mind. I think it's important ultimately to scaffold out your timing because sometimes kids need a little more time for the prototype. That's the active building piece. Sometimes that takes a little longer. So thinking about those things as you go. There's no right or wrong answer, just thinking about them.
Totally agree. Like the prototype side part did get cut a little bit short and was challenging this year to figure out how to make it work, so to speak.
Right.
And we do have a team agreement in there, as you were talking about, like the ideas and, like sometimes you can get stuck in the understand or even the ideation phase where you're trying to come up with ideas, multiple people in the group, I have this idea, I want this idea, I want that one. So we do have a team agreement in Packful, which, is like a pledge that they're going to respect each other, listen to each other's ideas and, really learn to work together because I'm sure all of you know, team group work doesn't go away. I feel like it actually got it more intense when I was in college. I was like, had so many group projects, but so learning how to work together as a team at this level is just really important. And it's, even with one of our winning teams, it was interesting to see that there was a student who who just really had a voice, and she was really engaged so much that she was able to convince her teammates to follow that idea. Although they had their ideas, she just really sold hers, and they were able to follow her. So, it's also an opportunity for them to even learn the art of persuasion with each other.
I have a quick question, Alina, Monty. So it seems like your target audience is middle, high, and on, right? I teach elementary, and just from a little bit that I saw, I totally see my kids being capable of doing it, right? But any insight into Packful in the context of elementary schools?
So let me just, and actually there is and I can point you to it, Monica, we do have a frequently asked question about this. The only reason, well, there's a couple. We target 13 and above because in the United States, the regulatory issue with COPA requires us to do that. Students who are 13 and above can sign up for applications by themselves. If they're younger than 13, I mean, they do, but they're not supposed to sign up. So we don't want to actively encourage that. So that's kind of where we are with that. Then we also targeted our learning and curricular materials and content and even the imagery and stuff like that toward a slightly older audience. So that's where we see the sweet spot, but that's the reason for 13. So we tend to work with middle and high school students for that reason. That said, we've had many of an elementary educators who've come along and either gone into Packful and extracted the activities and done it with their students outside. All this stuff is free and available for your use, and that way you just wouldn't get the benefit of the tracking and the management tools within the app. There are ways that we can look at doing that. It just gets really tricky because we would have to collect and manage permission slips from parents. That's not really an area we want to get too involved in unless we had a a partnership with a school or district for that purpose, and then we could do it.
So Monty, would I still be able to create a class?
You can create a class, you can join in, you can participate with us, and I would encourage you to do so. And then if you find things that are resonating, we can maybe help you figure out how to package that and work outside of the platform with kids who are less than 13. Unfortunately, we don't have a perfect solution for that age group at this time.
So they wouldn't be able to complete the steps and send them to me, correct?
Correct, because unless we were to capture parental permission from each of the students, we can't allow them into the platform. Now, they can click the box that says I'm 13 and above, but we're not going to encourage them to do that.
Would I be allowed to use your templates and just move it to a different platform without that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to jump in, Monica, and hopefully this is okay, but because I did have to do kind of a light version and needed to track in Google Classroom, I used the app to help guide us through, and then had those modified assignments that I put in Google Classroom. And then we went back in and updated Packful, but it's a possibility since they can't join because they're under 13. And
I will say, Monica, and for anyone, we're always looking for, we're funded through the generosity of Dr. Irwin and Mrs. Joan Jacobs, Irwin Jacobs was the founder of Qualcomm. They support a lot of our work, but we're also, looking for strategic partners who might want to engage at a different level. We've had some conversations with schools and districts about a tighter relationship. When those types of conversations come up, there's definitely an opportunity for us to explore more formally what it would look like with a school or district. If they had students that were younger, we would have to put that into an agreement, that kind of thing. I think there's opportunities that could evolve there. We're open to all kinds of potential suggestions and ideas.
Thank you.
Of course. In the interest of time, I'm going to stop the recording, but you are welcome to stay if you want, ask us any questions, talk to each other. We're so glad you're here. Hopefully you'll join the community and engage with each other, and then we'll be back here every week for the next 4 weeks. Do the best you can, get involved. We're just trying to explore and bring our message of building a better world to more people.
Monty, so for the sake of the homework, I have to wait for you to link me to your classroom, correct?
Did you already create a Packful account?
I just did during the
You
course.
just did, so yes, I need to do that. I can do that immediately after. for people who had done so beforehand, I did it, but I have to keep watching it and make sure that I get them hooked up. So I'll do that here shortly. It'll be within the half an hour. Okay.
And Monty, I think this is my space to say I'm sorry that I couldn't get here earlier. But I have been going into Packful platform, looking at the different activities. Hi, Amy, Monica, Alina, and I don't know, Suji. I'm Cata, I'm from Colombia, and we do a really similar process as the Packful platform, and I've been looking at the activities that we do and the one that Packful has, and it's been very interesting because I do think that we connect in many of them. So excited to be here, and I'll rewatch the recording later on.
No problem. We're glad you're able. You know, we always know that not everybody can join at this time, and we record. We love it when people can because it gives us an opportunity to talk with each other, and I think that's very helpful. So welcome, Kenna.
Yes.
I'm going to
great.
go ahead and stop the recording.